I don't know if this series is going to stick or whatever, but currently I'm only running one game of D&D, and I wanted to see if it was something that I could perhaps do. This won't be regular, this won't be after every week, I imagine, but it'll be after every noteworthy session that I feel like I can talk about. Today I'm going to try doing some level of a campaign diary. I've just started a new adventure, and I feel that it could be interesting to share my experiences running said adventure with you and talking about some things that I feel like I did well, I didn't do well on, and some things that I enjoyed from said session, and perhaps a thing or two that I learned from it, because I've seen veterans going for 30 plus years and finding this sort of stuff quite important, because even then DMs still do screw up, because guess what? Nobody on this planet is perfect except me. I've never made a mistake. In any case, I'll fill you in on some of the important details of the adventure so that you can kind of understand some things that I'm talking about. And yeah, I'll just tell you what happened in my first session of my adventure in Eberron called Shards of the Morning. So, first thing, this adventure started with just 2 players. We got one who doesn't come to those sessions because it was kind of like a filler for someone else who was away, and another person was also absent. So we were missing 3 out of the 5 main squad. Luckily, 2 out of 3 of said main squad were not introduced. Their current characters that they plan on introducing into the game don't exist yet, so I can be very lenient with it. However, one of them was already an established thing in the story and the setup that we've done, but I found a way around that. The session started with an awkward introduction where one of the characters had been imprisoned for speculated attempted assault of an individual in public, which was eventually dismissed due to there being not enough evidence to back it up, and witnesses saying that they didn't see anything because they were scared of the 9-foot Goliath man and if he would stab them if they said anything. So he was okay, he got out, but the guards are pretty convinced due to the way that he talked to them that he very much did it. So they were letting him out on the condition that he's basically being babysitted by another one of the characters. And as a result, there's an interesting dynamic going on. This kind of meek sorcerer dude basically being able to tell the 9-foot Goliath with 20 strength what to do, and he can't exactly say no. And yeah, it's the dynamic between the 2 players that were there was certainly quite interesting. The first half an hour to an hour of the session was kind of an introduction to this this way of playing, where one of the players was going to be almost babysitted and the other was going to be paid quite well in order to do so, and basically get out of town as soon as possible and go and help out towns, because that was kind of what they said could help them reduce their other friend's sentence, who very obviously committed murder in the streets. And they're also going to be let out next session, but on much more harsh terms, and they're going to be a lot more monitored, if you will. But yeah, that's basically the start of the adventure. It was done kind of casually. It was just kind of like the characters talked to the one NPC that they'd kind of got to know a little and helped them have a little roots in the town that they were starting in, which was called Star Alaska, which I'd planned a lot for, but due to the murder, they weren't going to be staying around for too long, so instead they went to a different place. It was basically recommended that they get out and that they can go do whatever, which I feel was pretty freeing for the party overall. It was kind of up to them to decide what they wanted to do and what they didn't. I presented them with a few key locations around them that I had done a small amount of planning for, and I had enough notes where I felt like I could run anything there that I needed to, but not deep enough where I'm wasting hours of my life away writing one small quest line that they are likely not to pursue. They had 5 primary choices. 3 of them were small villages with their own problems. One was a kind of weird site that was basically 10 standing stones on a hill that was called Dragon's Crown, and another town further on that the Goliath character hadn't had a good experience with, so didn't want to go back to. So it was in essence 4 decisions. They decided not to go with the standing stones for now, but that's definitely a plot line that I think they're going to be following pretty soon. And they had chosen one of the 3 villages that seemed the most appealing, because one was incredibly small and they felt like they couldn't get much out of it, and one was in a quite zealous country that they didn't want to try their chances with, considering one of the characters is a very openly faithful person to a god other than the Silver Flame, which isn't exactly like you're going to get arrested or whatever, but it's just going to be a lot worse to be there. So they'd gone with the other place, the like middle ground, if you will, which is called New Sire. It has a bunch of backstory to it that isn't really important for this, but in essence, they'd done some travel, and I had 4 encounters written up for said travel that I think, if I needed it to, could add some extra dynamic to it. And I had decided that they could roll for it to see if they found any, and I did the travel pretty quickly. There was no survival check because they were on a road. I went day by day, 1 encounter every day because there were only 2 of them, just to keep things quick, and I had ruled in my head, right, if either of them rolls an 18 or above, so every day they have about a 1 in 5th chance of having an encounter. They hit that average of not having an encounter, and they didn't get one, which I'm absolutely fine with, because they had some time in New Sire once they got there to do whatever they needed to do. It was basically a nicer introduction. I really had built New Sire, of all of the places, to be quite friendly. I wanted 2 out of the 3 of the villages that they could have gone to, I really wanted to build to kind of be a potential hub for them. One of these villages is, I won't spoil too much, but it's a bit different than the other. It's not exactly a safe haven or anything, but the party could definitely make it one if they solved the problems of the town. But they'd arrived there, and the feeling that I wanted to get off was that this place was friendly, and it felt like they were welcome there despite being, you know, somewhat criminals. Which, because the party had already started off with 2 people being potentially very bad criminals, and I didn't want the starting tone of the adventure to have much pressure at all, and New Sire being so friendly regardless of who they are, despite not making 100% sense in the story, I wanted to happen anyway, so that the players do have a place where they can feel comfortable. Because in an adventure, even if you're in hell or something, there can always be places that feel comfortable. And I think I did this to great effect. I asked the players after the game what they kind of thought of New Sire, and they both said that they really liked it. It was kind of an opposite vibe to Waterdeep for them, in a just as good way. Because it's kind of like, I basically have set them up with a small house, if you will, that needed some renovation, because Waterdeep did that quite well, and I wanted to see if I could replicate it, and so far so good. And they basically have a house there that they had empty, that they gave them in reward for them solving a problem, which I'll talk about in a sec. So far, with the kind of introduction to New Sire and the exploration, it felt somewhat slow, I will admit, but I really did speed it up by basically saying to the players after the day 1 of travel, we're just going to speed through this and see if you get any encounters, because that's all we're really here for, let's be real. There was no survival aspect. They have enough rations to go for weeks, and they also had horses, so really the only threat to them was the potential of a random encounter. 2 of them were hostile, 1 of them was potentially hostile, and 1 of them was entirely peaceful. So I just kind of wanted that to happen maybe at some point, and it didn't, which is fine. Made the travel a tiny bit slower than I would have liked, and so far they're not really feeling that the outside world can be dangerous, which I'm fine with. Breland, of all of the places, the country that they're starting in, is not particularly unsafe within the walls or the buildings of civilization, and on the roads as well, unless things are deliberately coming out and attacking you from important locations. You know what I mean? So I think that feeling, after the 3 days of no encounter, I kind of want to continue to get across. This country that they're in currently, that they're pretty close to actually being able to leave, after evaluating the pure luck of the dice, just saying, hey, there's no encounters on this 3-day journey. I was like, yeah, so I think that might become a recurring thing. I think it's going to be pretty rare if they find anyone except fellow travelers on the road. And that's absolutely fine, and I think that can definitely give off a feeling of security again, because I want the start of this game to be extremely safe, if you know what I mean. I don't want there to be that much of a threat, so that they can kind of bond on their own time as a party, and then they can more intensely get into like bigger roleplay and quest scenarios when I later start throwing these larger plot hooks around, which currently I have no massive plans for, but I don't feel like I need to. I just have a few interesting things that could happen, and depending on what threads they pull, that'll take them to different places. I think a thing that I'm kind of going for this adventure, and I'll tell you how it goes the more I do this, but the main feeling that I'm going for is that the story is controlled by them. I've set up all of these different evil forces that could potentially do things from, I have a couple of criminal organizations that are making waves, and I have otherworldly threats that may become more worldly, and I also have some old evils attempting to be resurrected. And they're all plot lines that I feel like I'd be cool doing, and ideas that I came up with, but the party may not respond to them as well as others. I'm presenting them with all these different types of threats to see which ones they respond best to, so that then I can kind of give them the adventure that the party want, if you will. Because if they get to choose their own adventure, beyond just decision making within the adventure, it motivates them more to care, if you know what I mean. And again, I'll tell you how that goes later. Nothing too important to report on here, but they met up with the mayor of the town, who told them that they've been having trouble with songs as of recent going on from the mountains that have almost been calling people towards them. Like, a couple of people have gone missing because they've heard this song or something, and they aren't really sure what to do about it, and the guard is too preoccupied staying on ground and making sure that other threats that are a bit larger are taken care of. So the two party members went up to the mountains, dealt with the two harpies that were doing it, and got a neat reward out of it, and a new NPC to talk to called Command. He is a half-orc that had survived the earth-shattering event known as the Mourning in the world, and kind of gives them more roots in this new sire that they are kind of spending some time in. I've set up the mayor as a friendly ally that was very open, and I've also set up their butler to be a stubborn and like insistently helpful person towards the mayor, who is confident that she can work for herself. And I'm also using this to set up the threads of an NPC that they will learn to like, because this mayor gave them a freaking house, and then she is later going to use them for something later on. Spoiler alert for the Sunday game going forward. Maybe editor Laura, please put that somewhere like 10 seconds before I just said that. But the point is, things about the mayor you should not be hearing on Sunday. But I can say this to Laura because she'll probably forget. So she... the mayor is in fact a somewhat high-ranking spy for a criminal organization that the party were actually dealing with in their little Session Zero introductory stuff. And word has reached her of them being these people that have destroyed one of the warehouses that they were using for illegal trades. And she feels like if they find out anything, and if they continue to deal with this, that they're a threat. So later on, once plot threads have been dealt with and the adventure has kind of been going on, I'm going to test the waters and have the first thing that properly happens to them be her having some of the members of this organization come down to New Sire and attack them all in the night, and do basically have them in her manor in an escape. This will be the first really high stakes thing in the adventure that will kind of make this criminal organization a more distinct threat, and that they're quite smart. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for. I'll tell you if that ever goes well. I have some other ideas to do with that as well, so if they manage to get out of their bindings or something and escape the room, there will be guards that they'll fight, and they'll have to kind of make their way through and either out or to find the mayor and get revenge. And depending on where they go and how bad their perception is, she might spring a trap on them and basically get them stuck in a room. and I was considering that perhaps her butler could, if needs be, come to the rescue with a vase in hand and just smash it across the mayor's head. It's just some random ideas that I think might be cool to see how they play out. And I feel like I want to make, for the start of this game, some likable NPCs so they have some roots. And I'll tell you all how that goes. But if you found any of this helpful, you can like and subscribe. And if you have any perhaps recommendations of what I can do with this storyline that I've just proposed to you, you can tell me in the comments, or be careful around the Discord. They might be spoilery, but you can join it anyway and mark your message as a spoiler, which you can look up how to do. You can do that in the description. You can go check out the Discord in the description. And yeah, check out more of our stuff. We have a lot of videos at this point. Thank you for watching. Bye.